Hi everyone, my name is Ellen and this is going to be my new channel, Through Their Eyes. And for this, I want to try and create a channel where we dig deep into the histories of every different character in every different fandom, whether from something as chaotic as the Hannibal fandom to most beloved of Harry Potter. I want to dig deep into these characters' histories and choices and see if their choices were affected by their history, or would they have just made those choices no matter what have happened to them. So, for this first episode, I'm going to start with the biggest, baddest person in the whole Harry Potter series. And unfortunately, I don't mean numbers this time, guys. Sorry. No, I mean Lord Voldemort. Or, as he was known when he was born, Tom Marvolo Riddle Jr. So, you see, he was born on December 31st, 1926. Unfortunately for us, his story didn't begin with him. It started with his parents. His mom was the last of the few of the Gaunt family. Unfortunately, she was beaten down mentally and physically from her father and her brother. She was an emotional wreck, and after centuries of inbreeding, it left her magically very weak. One day, she looked out the window and saw Tom Riddle Sr. and fell in love instantly. Whether this is because of looks or personality, I'm kind of leaning towards looks, and in her mindset, this was a chance to have someone to love her, would treat her well. So she took the little bit of magic that she had and made a love potion and gave it to Tom Riddle Sr. in the form of a drink. They were happy for however long they could be, and they got married. Unfortunately, when she became pregnant, she let Tom Riddle Sr. off the love potion, and he split. He left. He no longer had an obsession over this lady he never knew before. So, in despair, Merope tried to go back to her family to get help to raise the little baby that's in her. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible. The only way her family would take her back is if she got rid of her baby, because, in essence, her baby was a half-breed. They weren't going to accept that in their family, their pure-blood family. So, she left. She left the Gaunt family, she left, period. Unfortunately, she couldn't handle it. The heartbreak of losing the man she loved, even though he didn't love her, and the stress of delivering a baby in 1926 was too much for poor young Merope, and she died. Just moments after naming her baby boy after his father and his grandfather, Tom Marvolo Riddle Jr. So, you have to remember, during this time frame, he was raised in an orphanage run by nuns in a very Christian-centric time frame. So, the first speck of magic will have been met with fear, hysteria, even anger. And not only would the adults see this and react, but the kids would see it at the same time. They would see how the adults would treat Tom. They would see how Tom caused all these weird and crazy things to happen. They'll hear the whispers about the devils in the boy. And so they alienate him too. So no longer he would be attacked on all sides. And as we know, with children when it comes to love potions, have issues. Dumbledore states that he believes that Tom Riddle would have never been capable of love. My perspective is, with the love potion, it caused missing connections in Tom Riddle Jr.'s brain that made him not able to understand love, in a sense where unless someone was able to teach him, to show him love, he would never understand it. So he tried to reach out just like any other kid. But unfortunately, due to the hate, the hysteria, eventually he stopped caring. He started to see himself as something other, something different. or even better than the muggles that surrounded him. Because they treat him so differently, why shouldn't he believe that he's different? Growing up, he started to get colder. He started to lash out as a child would. He started to hurt the other kids. He started stealing, bullying, everything, because they never showed him sympathy, so why should they? And when his 11th birthday came around, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore came to his little orphanage. Unfortunately, instead of talking to little Tom Riddle first, he talked with the nun who was in charge, and he took her word that he was wrong, broken, that Tom Riddle Jr. was a monster. And so Dumbledore went in, and he saw this cold child, a child that had faced so much hate, anger, and fear. He had to pretend he was cold and distant, because why would he reach out to a stranger when everyone else around him taught him to be cold? So he told Dumbledore the truth when he realized, I'm not alone, I have magic. So I can do these things, can you? It's like a child trying to show off. And unfortunately, Dumbledore took it bad. He saw the truth in his version, what the nun told him. For Tom, everything he did was just payback. It's something he did in order to get back at the kids that neglected and hated him. And Dumbledore couldn't see that. He saw a cruel child, and he hated him in that moment. He might not have known what he would have become, as we're aware, but he knew there was something off with this child. So he feared him, distrusted him, just like those around him. So we go to the sorting ceremony of little Tom Riddle's first year. He sees the magic of Hogwarts, feels the love we feel, and he gets to sit underneath that sorting hat. And he's called for Slytherin. He walks to his house expecting to finally find a home, finally found others that would be kind to him. Unfortunately, he carried his father's name. To them, he was nothing but a muggle born in a house he didn't deserve to be in. So during that time, he again was met with hate, anger, and disdain, just because of something he could not control. Through the years, after suffering through this, I believe Tom Riddle Jr. tried his best. He wanted to prove to everyone, the muggles back at home, the wizards and witches, the teachers, everyone at Hogwarts, that he was better than what they thought he was. He wasn't just some muggle born. He was Tom Riddle Jr. He was powerful. So, and then later on in his years, starting to get ravaged by World War II, he starts to develop a real fear of death. His orphanage in London was constantly under pressure of being bombed. There was mass hysteria, fear, and his biggest concern was dying before he could be anything, be anyone important. He had that ambition, and he was terrified of it ending before he could ever prove to everyone that he was better. So he started his research, started digging into the darkest magic possible, and found out about Horcruxes. In his research, he also looked for a connection, the one thing he wanted more than anything. And he found out where he came from. He found out he's from the Gaunt family, which descended from Balthazar Slytherin, one of the proudest house founders there is. And he was so proud of this. He found a connection that he desperately wanted. And so he clung to this one connection he knew. He adopted his long-dead ancestors' beliefs in an attempt to keep that connection alive and keep them together. Unfortunately, it changed his views to the point where he already hated the Muggles because of how they treated him. In his mind, why should their children be any better? So he adopted the views and found the Chamber of Secrets. Unfortunately, it led to a lot of trouble. Eventually, Hogwarts was almost closed after Moaning Myrtle was killed. He was desperate. He did not want to go home, not in that war-ravaged time. So he decided to put the blame on Hagrid. In his mind, it was perfect. He would not have to go home. He would not lose the Wizarding World. And Hagrid had already been in trouble. He had hidden animals before. Why would it be so different now? Why wouldn't he magically let loose this creature that could have killed Moaning Myrtle? So he did it. He blamed Hagrid and made his first Horcrux with Moaning Myrtle. And I believe that was the start of his downfall. His mind had fractured, had broken so deeply, I think it started him on a downward spiral. We move forward to him graduating, and he tries to find his family. Unfortunately, as we know, neither family wanted him. His mother's side hated him for having a Muggle father. In their eyes, he was less than dirt underneath their feet, and he hated them for that. The father's side didn't want him at all. He was just a bastard child who had no importance in their lives. And so he lashed out. His poor fractured mind could not handle the rejection of the last connection he could have possibly had. So he lashed out and killed. He killed all of them and framed it on his uncle. His uncle spent the last of his days in Azkaban. And he made another Horcrux in the Gaunt Ring. He then went to dip it and tried to apply with his limited experience of Hogwarts and tried to apply to the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher position. Unfortunately, Dippet said, "You have great teaching abilities, but you don't have the history to back it up. You need to experience the world to find out all the new things out there." And so, Tom Riddle accepted it. He knew he needed experience. He also needed money to have the experience. So he worked at Borgin & Burke's, where he unfortunately ran into Hezekiah Smith. And with her, he found out that she had a piece of his family history, the Slytherin locket. And seeing how she flaunted it, how she had this piece of his family history and not even respecting it when it should be his, drove him insane. With his fractured mind, from already having 2 Horcruxes, he killed her and flamed her house elf. And he took both of them and made the locket into another Horcrux. Later on, we are aware that he makes the cup into a Horcrux as well, further shattering his mind. At this point, I'm pretty sure we can assume that his physical appearance and his mental state had started to erode. His soul was less than 50% at this point in his body. So when he went back to Hogwarts to apply again for the Defense Against the Dark Arts position, Dumbledore denied him. After years of exploring the world, finding the lost Ravenclaw diadem, he no longer was allowed to be at Hogwarts. He couldn't be the teacher he wanted to be. So, he cursed the job position and hid the diadem in the room of requirement. After this point, his history gets a little fuzzy. We know he caused a lot of death and mayhem in the First Wizarding War. And up until that point, we can notice that his he fractured more and more as he made more and more Horcruxes. Now, at the start of the Harry Potter series started with the horrible night of Halloween and him getting news from Peter Pettigrew of the location of the Potter family. At this point, he was driven by fear of death, his insanity not allowing this threat to his life to live. And so he went after the Potters. He killed James and offered Lily to live as his promise he made to Snape. Unfortunately, Lily refused to step aside, so he killed her. However, magic's a tricky thing. You see, I believe that when he promised Snape that he would spare her, magic trapped him, making him keep his promise. However, Lily offered an alternative, to kill her and spare her son. Unfortunately, when she refused 3 times and he killed her, Tom Riddle Jr. got bit by magic and said, okay. He killed Lily, and when he turned his attention to small, tiny Harry Potter, magic struck back, hit him, and killed his body because he went back on his word. With this, we know he became a ghost kind of being, traveling the world constantly, possessing what he could, and slowly being driven mad by loneliness and detachment. As we know, beings are meant to linger on after death. It's not something that's good for them. And then, for him, with the Horcruxes, it made it even worse. So, I believe by the first book, we see a little bit of Tom Riddle still in him. Because he recognizes he's smart enough to see that having Harry Potter as an ally is better than having him as an enemy. So he offers to give him his family back, which of course we know, not possible. It's not going to happen, but he tried. Sort of. So after this, we see him deteriorate more and more. Him being in the little changeling body did not help. By the 4th book, he is driven mad by his lack of soul, his mind fractured beyond reasoning. His only thing is his hatred of muggles and his fear of death. The only 2 things driving him in this world. And that's how the Wizarding World War II started. And the reason for the whole thing was because Voldemort wanted nothing to do with the Muggles. He wanted to exterminate any link to them, all of them. Even the Muggle-borns, the half-breeds, everything. He never wanted anything to do with them. And he never wanted to have to fear death. So, I believe with this, we can see that a lot of his choices came from his lack of ability to connect, to love. Dumbledore was correct in that. But I don't think he was never able to love. I don't think he was given the chance to. Yes, from the first Horcrux, it was his choice. He screwed up royally, and unfortunately for him, he has to pay the price. But maybe if there was different choices, maybe if Merope never used the love potion, maybe if Tom Riddle Jr. had been adopted, or had been given that love and care he had been needed, or who knows, what if he had been sorted into Hufflepuff? What matters is, yes, choices do matter, but so do circumstances. I fully believe that if he was given a chance in a positive situation, I don't believe the Second Wizarding World War would have happened. All that fear, all that death would have never happened. Because Lord Voldemort would not have happened. In the end, Lord Voldemort was the physical embodiment of little Tom's fear and hatred growing into something more monstrous than could ever be. Thank you guys for listening. I apologize for any issues, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!